Welcome to IB Academy. You are watching the practice test series of Life in the UK test. This is the practice test video on Chapter 3 Part 4, A Global Power. Watch carefully and learn quickly. The first question is the statement below true or false? There is a dragon on the official flag of Wales. True. False. Correct answer, true. The next question is, what were the names of the two primary groups in Parliament during the early 18th century? Whigs, Labour, Tories, Nationalists. Correct answer, Whigs, Tories. The next question is, which two individuals fought in conflicts against Napoleon? Winston Churchill, the Duke of Wellington, Margaret Thatcher, Admiral Nelson. Correct answer, the Duke of Wellington, Admiral Nelson. Let us move on to the next question. Is the statement below true or false? In 1805 at the Battle of Trafalgar, Admiral Nelson defeated the German fleet. True. False. Correct answer, false. Is the statement below true or false? The Union flag consists of 4 crosses, representing each part of the United Kingdom. True. False. Correct answer, false. Which of these statements is correct? The Industrial Revolution was the quick growth of industry in the 18th and 19th centuries. The Industrial Revolution brought changes to the banking system in the 1970s. Correct answer. The Industrial Revolution was the quick growth of industry in the 18th and 19th centuries. Which of these statements is correct? In the 18th century, 2 political factions appeared, the Whigs and the Tories. In the 18th century, 2 political factions appeared, the Conservatives and the Liberals. Correct answer. In the 18th century, 2 political factions appeared, the Whigs and the Tories. Is the statement below true or false? When Queen Anne passed away, a German, George of Hanover, became the next King of England. True. False. Correct answer, true. Which of these statements is correct? Richard Arkwright created new farming techniques in the UK. Richard Arkwright established efficient and profitable factories. Correct answer. Richard Arkwright established efficient and profitable factories. Which of these statements is correct? The first individual to hold the title Prime Minister was Sir Robert Walpole. The first individual to hold the title Prime Minister was Sir Christopher Wren. Correct answer. The first individual to hold the title Prime Minister was Sir Robert Walpole. Which of these statements is correct? Sheikh Deen Mahomet is known for bringing tea drinking and bungalows to Britain from India. Sheikh Deen Mahomet brought curry houses and shampooing to Britain from India. Correct answer. Sheikh Deen Mahomet brought curry houses and shampooing to Britain from India. Is the statement below true or false? Emmeline Pankhurst is known for leading the movement to grant women the right to vote in UK parliamentary elections. True. False. Correct answer, true. Which of these statements is correct? In 1776, some American colonies declared independence from Britain. American colonists were ultimately defeated by the British. Correct answer. In 1776, some American colonies declared independence from Britain. Which two of the following were notable Victorians? Margaret Thatcher, Florence Nightingale, Dylan Thomas, Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Correct answer, Florence Nightingale, Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Who were the suffragettes? Women who fought for women's voting rights. Women who remained at home to raise families. Women who opted to be single. Women who moved to India from the UK. Correct answer, women who fought for women's voting rights. What were two important aspects of the Reform Act of 1832? It eliminated rotten boroughs. It granted women the right to vote. It expanded the voting population. It reduced the monarch's power. Correct answer, it expanded the voting population. It eliminated rotten boroughs. Which of these statements is correct? Florence Nightingale is linked to the advancement of nursing. Florence Nightingale is linked to law enforcement. Correct answer, Florence Nightingale is linked to the advancement of nursing. Is the statement below true or false? In the 18th century, new radical ideas about politics, philosophy, and science emerged, known as the Enlightenment. True. False. Correct answer, true. Which of these statements is correct? The Reform Act of 1832 strengthened the House of Lords. The Reform Act of 1832 increased the number of voters. Correct answer, the Reform Act of 1832 increased the number of voters. Is the statement below true or false? Britain has never been in conflict with France. True. False. Correct answer, false. Which product did the UK account for over half of the global supply of in the 19th century? Rubber. Cotton fabric. Beer. Cigarettes. Correct answer, cotton fabric. Is the statement below true or false? In 1707, England and Scotland merged into one kingdom. True. False. Correct answer, true. During the 17th century, many individuals departed from Britain and Ireland to establish themselves in which of the following locations? London. America. Africa. France. Correct answer, America. Is the statement below true or false? During the Victorian era, the British Empire became the largest empire in history. False. True. Correct answer, true. What was Isambard Kingdom Brunel known for designing and constructing? Cars. Bridges. Tall buildings. Airplanes. Correct answer, bridges. Which of these statements is true? George and Robert Stephenson were well-known pioneers of train engines. George and Robert Stephenson were well-known pioneers of farming changes. Right answer. George and Robert Stephenson were well-known pioneers of train engines, whose powers were limited by the Bill of Rights of 1689. The Church. Judges. The King. Parliament. Right answer. The King. Which two advancements were part of the Industrial Revolution? Machinery. Medical progress. Steam power. Legal changes. Right answer. Steam power, machinery. Which group of refugees arrived in England before 1720? Germans. Welsh. Huguenots. Brelans. Right answer, Huguenots. After slavery was abolished, over 2 million migrants came from which two countries to take the place of the freed slaves? Russia. China. Australia. India. Correct answer, China, India. Is the following statement true or false? In 1833, a law ended slavery across the British Empire. True. False. Correct answer. True. Where in the British Empire did the Boer War of 1899 to 1902 occur? South Africa, Canada, Australia, India. Correct answer. South Africa. Which region of the UK is linked to Robert Burns, 1759 to 96? Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, England. Correct answer. Scotland. The Union flag has 3 crosses. One is St. George's. Who do the other 2 crosses stand for? St. Andrew, St. Piran, St. Patrick, St. David. Correct answer. St. Andrew, St. Patrick. Which 2 were influential thinkers of the Enlightenment? Robert Louis Stevenson, Adam Smith, Robert Burns, David Hume. Correct answer. Adam Smith, David Hume. Which of these statements is true? The Highland clearances took place in Scotland. The Highland clearances took place in Ireland. Correct answer. The Highland clearances took place in Scotland. Which 2 statements about slavery are true? Slavery continued in the British Empire until the early 20th century. William Wilberforce was a prominent abolitionist. Quakers established the first anti-slavery organizations. The Royal Navy did not stop ships transporting slaves. Correct answer. William Wilberforce was a prominent abolitionist. Quakers established the first anti-slavery organizations. Which colonies of the British Empire chose to declare independence in 1776? South African, American, Canadian, Australian. Correct answer. American. The Enlightenment resulted in significant progress in which 2 fields? Politics, history, theatre, science. Correct answer. Politics, science. Which of these statements is true? During the Industrial Revolution, canals were constructed to connect the mines in the mountains with factories in the cities. During the Industrial Revolution, canals were constructed to connect factories to cities and ports. Correct answer. During the Industrial Revolution, canals were constructed to connect factories to cities and ports. Which country of the UK is not represented on the Union flag? Northern Ireland, Wales, England, Scotland. Correct answer. Wales. What event in 1851 took place at the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park and showcased goods and exhibits from Britain and around the globe? The Great Occasion, the Great Exhibition, the Great Event, the Great Show. Correct answer. The Great Exhibition. Which group made an attempt to place James II's son on the throne in place of George I, but was swiftly defeated? Irish Catholics, Scottish Jacobites, French Huguenots, English Puritans. Correct answer. Scottish Jacobites. In what 2 ways did Scotland change following the Battle of Culloden? Clansmen became tenants required to pay for the land they occupied. Chieftains seized control of the land from the English king. Chieftains became landlords if they had the support of the English king. The clans were completely annihilated. Correct answer. Clansmen became tenants required to pay for the land they occupied. Chieftains became landlords if they had the support of the English king. In 1810, Sheikh Dean Mahomet established which venue on George Street, London? Mahomet Shampoo Parlour. Hindustan Coffee House. Pakistan Curry House. Mahomet Coffee House. Correct answer, Hindustan Coffee House. Is the statement below true or false? Sir Robert Walpole served as Prime Minister from 1700 to 1730. True. False. Correct answer, false. Is the statement below true or false? The commercial growth and prosperity of the 19th century were partly supported by the thriving slave trade. True. False. Correct answer, true. Is the statement below true or false? Richard Arkwright invented horse-powered spinning mills that utilized only one machine, enhancing efficiency and output. True. False. Correct answer, true. Following the Act of Union, Scotland ceased to be an independent nation. In what ways did it remain distinct from the rest of Great Britain? It maintained its own educational system. It maintained its own legal system. It maintained its own Presbyterian church. All of the above. Correct answer, all of the above. Where did Florence Nightingale found the Nightingale School for Nurses in 1860? St. Thomas Hospital, London. Addenbrooke's Hospital, Cambridge. St. James's University Hospital, Leeds. Prince Philip Hospital, Llanelli. Correct answer, St. Thomas Hospital, London. Which country did Britain come into conflict with during the 19th century due to their expansion and trade in overlapping regions? France. Spain. Germany. The Netherlands. Correct answer, France. What was the primary source of employment in the UK prior to the Industrial Revolution? Agriculture. Financial services. Canal building. The wool trade. Correct answer, agriculture. Is the statement below true or false? Due to its status as the world's foremost industrial power in the 1800s, Britain was accountable for producing half of the global coal, iron, and cotton fabric. True. False. Correct answer, true. How many individuals emigrated from the United Kingdom during the reign of Queen Victoria from 1853 to 1913? 2 million. 13 million. 100,000. 500 million. Correct answer, 13 million. Which statement accurately characterizes party politics during the reign of William and Mary? There were two primary factions, the Liberals and the Conservatives. There were two primary factions, the Tories and the Whigs. Correct answer, there were two primary factions, the Tories and the Whigs. The French wars concluded in 1815 when Napoleon was defeated by the Duke of Wellington at which battle? Battle of Trafalgar. Battle of Waterloo. Battle of Ostend. Battle of Naseby. Correct answer, Battle of Waterloo. What are small Scottish farms also referred to as? Crofts. Homesteads. Hamlets. Bothies. Correct answer, crofts. Which of these statements is accurate? Robert Burns wrote in Scots, English, and a combination of both. Robert Burns wrote solely in the Scots language. Correct answer, Robert Burns wrote in Scots, English, and a combination of both. Richard Arkwright utilized steam engines for what purpose? generate electricity, operate machinery, tow carriages. All of the above. Correct answer, operate machinery. Who were the Huguenots? Roman Catholics, French Protestants, Dutch Protestants, French Catholics. Correct answer, French Protestants. Where did the Boer War occur? Turkey, France, South Africa, England. Correct answer, South Africa. The Industrial Revolution witnessed the swift expansion of which of the following during the 18th and 19th centuries? Democracy, industry, population, agriculture. Correct answer, industry. Which Acts of Parliament, enacted in 1832 and 1867, eliminated rotten boroughs, allocated more parliamentary seats to urban regions, and significantly enhanced the voting rights of the populace? The Voting Acts, the Reform Acts, the Election Acts, the Change Acts. Correct answer, the Reform Acts. Rudyard Kipling received which prestigious award in 1907? The Somerset Maugham Award, the Nobel Prize in Literature, the Pulitzer Prize, the Man Booker Prize. Correct answer, the Nobel Prize in Literature. Which of these statements is not true? During the reign of Queen Victoria, the size and influence of the British middle class diminished. During the reign of Queen Victoria, the middle classes grew increasingly important. Correct answer, during the reign of Queen Victoria, the size and influence of the British middle class diminished. Which of these two countries did the poet and author Rudyard Kipling reside in? USA, Fiji, India, Japan. Correct answer, India and USA. Following the Glorious Revolution, Parliament was not yet a democracy. What was the reason? Only bishops had the right to vote. Parliament determined who could ascend to the throne. Only men possessing property of a specific value were allowed to vote. Only women were permitted to vote. Correct answer, only men possessing property of a specific value were allowed to vote. What rights were granted to women by the Acts of Parliament in 1870 and 1882? The right to bear arms, the right to work, the right to retain their own earnings and property after marriage, the right to pursue higher education. Correct answer, the right to retain their own earnings and property after marriage. Which of the following statements is accurate? Colonists in North America were poorly educated and disinterested in political matters. Colonists in North America were well educated and engaged with concepts of liberty. Correct answer, colonists in North America were well educated and engaged with concepts of liberty. Against which two of the following did Napoleon engage in battles? Horatio Nelson, Oliver Cromwell, Francis Drake, the Duke of Wellington. Correct answer, Horatio Nelson. The Duke of Wellington. Where is HMS Victory located for public viewing? Portsmouth, Southampton, Poole, Falmouth. Correct answer, Portsmouth. What were women advocating for the right to vote referred to as? Feminettes, suffragettes, votettes, Democrats. Correct answer, suffragettes. The Victorian era is well known for reformers who sought to enhance conditions for which demographic? the clergy, the poor, the aristocracy, the middle classes. Correct answer, the poor. Which of the following statements is accurate? In 1789, an unpopular new government emerged in France, prompting Britain to declare war. In 1789, a revolution occurred in France, leading the new French government to declare war on Britain. Correct answer. In 1789, a revolution occurred in France, leading the new French government to declare war on Britain. In the 18th century, Britain engaged in several conflicts with which nation? Spain, France, South Africa, India. Correct answer, France. Which two of the following elements played a role in the Industrial Revolution in Britain? The establishment of the modern welfare state. The advancement of steam power and machinery. The abolition of the Corn Laws. The emergence of plague. Correct answer. The advancement of steam power and machinery. And the abolition of the Corn Laws. During the 19th century, Britain and the East India Company acquired control over significant portions of which two nations? Canada, Saudi Arabia, India, the United States. Correct answer, Canada, India. Is the following statement true or false? Britain possessed colonies in southern Africa during the 19th century. True. False. Correct answer, true. Is this statement true or false? During the reign of Queen Victoria, the French Empire became the largest empire the world has ever known. True. False. Correct answer, false. In the 19th century, which sector of the Irish economy sustained approximately 2/3 of its population? Shipbuilding, agriculture, tourism, manufacturing. Correct answer, agriculture. Is the following statement true or false? Sheikh Deen Mahomet was born in 1759 and raised in the Bengal region of India. False. True. Correct answer, true. Which of these nations was included in the British Empire during the reign of Queen Victoria? Switzerland, India, France, USA. Correct answer, India. Is the following statement true or false? The American colonies revolted against the British Parliament in the 18th century due to their desire to avoid taxation without representation in Parliament. True. False. Correct answer, true. What are George and Robert Stephenson renowned for pioneering? The electric light bulb, the railway engine, the telephone, the aeroplane. Correct answer, the railway engine. Certain individuals in Britain opposed the slave trade. Who established the first formal anti-slavery organizations in the late 1700s? Quakers, Methodists, Puritans, Mormons. Correct answer, Quakers. Which of the following statements is accurate? The Declaration of Rights presented at the coronation of William and Mary indicated that the monarch possessed absolute authority to govern without Parliament's interference. The Declaration of Rights presented at the coronation of William and Mary indicated that the monarch could no longer impose taxes or administer justice. Correct answer. The Declaration of Rights presented at the coronation of William and Mary indicated that the monarch could no longer impose taxes or administer justice. Which of the following statements is accurate? A free press implies that newspapers are distributed at no cost. A free press implies that the content of newspapers is free from governmental oversight. Correct answer. A free press implies that the content of newspapers is free from governmental oversight. After the Bill of Rights was introduced, monarchs had to request Parliament to renew funding for which two of the following annually? Navy, palaces, army, building of castles. Correct answer, Navy, army. Is the statement below true or false? France was the first nation to industrialize extensively. True. False. Correct answer, false. In what year was the first Union flag created? 1606, 1506, 1609, 1706. Correct answer, 1606. Subscribe to IB Academy for more such videos and stay tuned for our next video on Chapter 3 Part 5. The 20th Century. Keep learning.